My name is Harold Cole, 70 years old, a father, and a small freight owner. I drove 6 hours to forgive my son. Then a neighbor whispered, "Don't go in. They'll kill you for the money." The doorbell rang. My hand shook. If you've ever prayed for a second chance, don't scroll. Subscribe. Someone you love needs this warning.
Pacific Palisades looked like a postcard. Sun-splashed streets, wind in the palms, Porsche engines purring like contented cats. I pulled my 1996 Buick Roadmaster into the circular drive of a glass-and-stone palace carved into the hillside. The fountain in the center flicked rainbows into the air, as if even the water wanted to show off. I rang the bell. Chimes drifted through the house. Nobody answered. I checked my phone. 3 years since our last conversation, and then, last night, "Dad, can we start over? Dinner Friday. We miss you." I stared through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind you see in magazines. Everything looked curated. Vases, fruit bowl that probably wasn't real fruit, a couch too white to be normal. I adjusted my tie and tried to ignore the sweat dampening the collar of my shirt. I thought about turning back only when the voice came, a hiss from the hedge line on my left. "Sir," it repeated, urgent, "please, don't go inside." A thin man stepped out, pushing thick glasses up a narrow nose. He still had a leaf blower strapped to his back like a weapon he didn't trust. "Excuse me?" I asked, shifting the gift bags in my hands. One with my old Omega Seamaster I'd planned to give my son. The other held Ellen's diamond studs, the ones my wife wore the night we danced barefoot in our Austin kitchen. The man swallowed. "You're Frank Delaney, right?" My chest tightened. "Yes." "Then listen to me," he said, eyes flicking to the camera above the door. "I'm Wayne Porter. I live next door. I've watched them since last year. Your son and his wife Sloane, what they did to her father, please, leave now." My mouth dried. "What are you implying?" "He came for dinner, like you, healthy as a horse. A week later, cardiac arrest. Except it wasn't. He left here white as a sheet, puking in the driveway. The whole street saw." Wayne's voice shook. "Inheritance hit within days. $5 million, new cars, new house, new everything." I stared at him, then at the house, then back at him. "Adam? My son who cried when he ran over a squirrel at 16? The kid who once asked if ants felt pain? No," I said, and I didn't recognize the way my voice scraped out of me. Wayne took a step closer. "I can't prove it. Money like this buys silence. But that woman, there's something cold in her. And your son, he's not who you remember." He lifted a trembling hand. "You need to leave. Don't drink anything. Don't eat anything." Wind touched the fountain spray, and a rainbow shattered on the concrete. In the stillness after, I heard my own pulse. The house's security camera tracked us with a red blink. My brain went to a jittery static. Ellen's photo flashed in my mind, that smile that said, "Be generous, Frank. Be the bigger man. Be the father he needs." I looked down at the gifts. The Omega winked from its velvet box like it knew something I didn't. "I appreciate your concern," I said, "but you're wrong." The words tasted like denial and drought. Wayne sighed like a man who knew a car was headed for a cliff. "If you don't leave," he whispered, "don't touch a single glass they hand you, not one sip." And then he was gone, swallowed by manicured ficus and the kind of quiet only rich neighborhoods can afford. For a long beat, all they heard was water and my heartbeat. Then tires whispered on asphalt. A silver BMW slid in behind my Buick like a shark ghosting a dock. Tinted windows. The engine idled. Time thinned. Do I run? Do I hug my son? I couldn't tell which one would break me more. If this opening twist squeezed your chest, don't scroll. Hit subscribe. Somewhere out there, a father needs this reminder. Love is fierce, but truth is survival. Like and comment, I'm here, if you've ever ignored a warning you wish you hadn't. 3 years of silence. One voicemail changed everything. "Dad, it's me. I'm sorry. Can we start over?" 48 hours earlier, I was alone in my Austin office, a sunburned map of Texas fading on the wall. Delaney Freighton Hall had weathered floods, recessions, and cheap competitors, but the email glowing on my monitor felt like a punch. Climb distribution, terminating, effective, immediately. There went $2 million in annual revenue. There went 3 driver jobs. There went the last illusion that grit could outmuscle time. The coffee on my desk had gone cold, a skim of cream floating like a tiny oil spill. I stared at the numbers and saw Ellen's picture propped in the corner. "Don't be so hard on him, Frank." She always said that. "Come on," I told her picture. "You were always the soft one." The phone rang. Caller ID. Adam. I almost let it ring out. Pride is a stupid god, and I'd worshipped mine too long. "Hey, Dad," he said, voice careful, as if he were stepping onto a frozen pond. "I know it's been a while. Sloan and we'd like to have you over. Maybe dinner? This Friday?" I stared at the photo of us at Lake Travis. Adam at 12, holding a fish too small to keep, but smiling like he'd caught Nessie. "Dinner," I repeated. "I owe you an apology," he said. The words cracked in the middle. "For how I left. I said ugly things. I want to make it right." I closed my eyes and saw the last fight. 35 years old and burning with a dream. Adam asking for 50 grand to seat an app he swore would flip trucking logistics on its head. Me telling him to get a real job. Him saying I was small. Me saying he was chasing daylight. The door's slam had rattled a picture of Ellen off the wall. That sound never stopped echoing. "All right," I said softly, and it was like I could feel her hand on my shoulder, telling me to choose love. "Friday. I'll drive out." "You mean it?" He sounded like the kid who got nervous on the first day of school. "Text me the address." He did. Pacific Palisades. I Googled the Zillow estimate and swallowed. Maybe my boy had done it after all. Maybe I'd misjudged him. Maybe that was the story. I went home and dug out the good luggage, packed a clean sport coat, picked the old Omega I had planned to give him on his 40th. For Sloan, I chose Ellen's diamond studs. She would have wanted those to stay in the family. I placed both in tissue paper, like laying down prayers. At dawn, I pulled on to I-10 with a thermos of diner coffee and a bag of kolaches. The Buick hummed steady, a ship of memories. Buc-ee's at Luling, windmills in West Texas turning like lazy giants. In El Paso, a trucker I knew clapped my shoulder at a Love's and said, "Family's worth the miles, Frank." Somewhere past Palm Springs, the wind farms whirled white under a perfect sky, and the eagles sang about Hotel California, and irony wrote itself. I remembered the time Ellen filled the town car with too many snacks for a camping trip 30 minutes from home. The boys laughed when I failed to start the fire. "We're learning," I said, and she laughed until she cried. Those were golden days. They tasted like Texas summer and cheap vanilla ice cream melting down a boy's hands. By the time the ocean air cut in on the 405, I'd built a whole future in my head. Hugs, tears, a fresh start, pride swallowed, bridges rebuilt. The Omega on Adam's wrist, Ellen's earring shining on Sloan. I parked in front of the glass house on the hill with hope beating like a drum. And then the hedge whispered, and the drum turned to something else entirely. If you've ever gambled your heart on a second chance, hit like. And if this feels too close to home, subscribe. This isn't just a revenge story. It's a map for surviving love and betrayal in real life. Comment second chances if you believe in them, even when it hurts. No footsteps. No laughter. Just a fountain laughing at me, and a red light blinking on the camera like an unblinking eye. I stood on the steps so long my knees started to complain. The fountain threw diamonds into the air while the sun slid west over Santa Monica. I left 2 voicemails, one for Adam, one for Sloan. "I'm here, excited to see you. Call me." My voice had that rusted clang you get when you pretend you're not worried. I walked the perimeter like a security guard, gift bags swinging. The backyard looked like a magazine spread, pool shining like a liquid sapphire, a grill big enough to feed a high school team, a fire pit ringed with clean white stones. Through the glass, everything was beautiful, cold, untouched. I pressed my palm to the sliding door and felt nothing but separation. I texted again. "You guys close? Should I run and grab milk? Anything?" The replies never came. Across the street, a gardener lifted his head to watch me. I smiled at him the way men smile when they're not sure where they stand. A security patrol glided past and lingered just long enough to remind me I didn't belong here. Wealth has a sound. It's silence with a price tag. At 4:12, I stood. My back cracked. I told myself maybe Adam meant next Friday. Maybe I misheard, like I always accused Ellen of doing when she heard what she wanted. My hand drifted to the Omega's box just as a voice murmured from green leaves, "For the last time, please, don't take a drink in that house." Wayne had returned, face pale, eyes shiny with panic. "You think I want to be the crazy neighbor? I don't. But I also can't watch another father go in there and not come out right." "You mean he died, Sloane's father?" He nodded once, like the motion hurt. "Richard Hart, Pasadena, 70, played golf twice a week. Then, one dinner at this house. A week later, gone. Quiet cremation. No autopsy. Money moved fast." I wanted to say he was lying, that he was jealous, that all rich neighborhoods have a busybody with a hobby of other people's tragedies. But the way his mouth trembled when he said the name made me sick to my stomach. I thought of my boy at 12 asking if ants had families, the clean, slicing sound a guillotine must make, the way a memory can become a weapon.
And then, tires on gravel, German engineering purring like confidence. A silver BMW rolled into the drive behind my Buick. Every part of me told me to run. Another part said, "He called you. He said sorry. He's your son. Don't throw away what's left." The driver's door opened. Adam unfolded in slow motion, custom suit, new watch, the California sheen you only see on people who sleep in houses where everything's white. "Dad," he said, and when he pulled me into a hug, I smelled cologne and a hint of the boy who used to smell like grass and sunblock. "You made it." "We got stuck downtown. Lawyer stuff. Sloane's inside setting the table." Every warning bell clanged. Lawyer stuff. New watch. New house. New smile. Same boy? Or a stranger wearing his face like a well-tailored mask? The passenger door opened and Sloane stepped out with a smile that could light a studio. "Mr. Delaney, you're even more handsome than Adam said." Blonde hair that probably had its own agent, a dress that said money the way Texas says barbecue. Warmth in her eyes? Sure. Calculation? Maybe. I couldn't tell. "Come on," Adam said, grabbing one of my bags. "You've been out here all afternoon. Let's get you a drink." I swallowed, my throat a desert. "Water," I said too quickly. "Just water. Long drive." "That we can do," Sloane laughed, hand on my shoulder guiding me toward the door. The keypad beeped, the red camera light blinked, the house opened its jaw.
If this made your stomach drop, don't look away. Tap subscribe. Sometimes the scariest villains are the ones who call us Dad. Comment, I'm listening, if you're staying with me to the end. I opened a cabinet for a glass and found a skull and crossbones smiling back. The label said what the hedge had whispered: potassium cyanide. Handle with extreme care. Time fractured. My hands shook so hard the glass chattered. The skull and crossbones stared up at me as if death had its own brand identity. Wayne's whisper tunneled through the marble and steel. Don't drink anything. Ellen's studs in my bag felt like a sick joke. I slid the bottle back where it had been, exactly. Closed the door. Breathe. If there's one thing a man who's kept a trucking company alive knows, it's how to keep his face steady when a wheel's about to come off. I filled a glass with tap water, the sound unnaturally loud. "How's the water?" Sloan called, wooden spoon tapping the rim of a pot like a metronome. "Perfect," I managed. My voice sounded like I was borrowing a stranger's throat. Back in the living room, Adam flipped through a magazine like a man practicing being casual. "We've got a Napa tab you're going to love, and I've been learning about terroir. You wouldn't believe how different soil can make grapes taste."
"Doctor told me to go light," I lied, settling into the leather chair with a clear line to the kitchen doorway. "Blood pressure meds." "That's okay," Sloan said from the island, laying out 3 crystal goblets. Then, easy as a morning routine, she pulled open the lower cabinet. The same lower cabinet. The same amber bottle. My lungs seized. She glanced toward the living room, quick, practiced, and tipped the bottle. 1 drop. 2. 3. Into 1 glass only. She swirled it, hummed Ellen's song, and tucked the bottle back between bleach and steel wool like it belonged. I memorized the position of the glass she'd doctored, right side of the tray, closest to the hand she used to pour. It's funny what the body can do on survival autopilot. You can track a killer's wrist while your heart breaks for a son who thinks you don't see him. "Gentlemen," Sloan announced, "dinner is served." The dining room looked like a temple. Mahogany table. Chandelier casting gold across china thin as eggshells. Sloan set the tray between us and guided me to the head chair, a place of honor far from the door. Adam raised his glass. "To family, healing old wounds." Sloan's smile stayed fixed, the tiny muscles around her eyes barely working. "To new beginnings." I kept my hands on my own glass of water, making sure they saw. "You know what? I'm off alcohol," I said lightly. "Doctor threatened me with homework if I didn't behave." A flicker, so quick I could have missed it, passed through Sloan's eyes. Adam's smile tightened like a knot. He said, too cheerfully, "No problem. Sloan makes a killer juice. You'll love it. Pomegranate, cranberry, antioxidants, Dad." That wink he tossed her would have looked playful to anyone else. To me, it was a signal. Plan B. She vanished into the kitchen. The blender roared, too long for simple juice. Ice clinked. Cabinets opened, closed. Meanwhile, Adam talked about house renovations, lawyers. "We're setting up some trusts," he said, waves of words lapping at my ankles. "It's all very grown up." Sloan returned with a frosted pitcher, jewel red, with garnish floating like confetti. She poured a glass and slid it toward me, and both of them watched my hand the way a gambler watches a final card. "It looks amazing," I said, delaying. "But you two worked so hard on dinner. Let's eat first." "Just a sip," Adam pressed. "You'll love it." The smile on his face didn't reach his eyes. If you felt that jolt when the bottle appeared, hit like. And if you've ever had to smile at someone you didn't trust, subscribe. This is emotional storytelling for adults who know love and betrayal live under the same roof. Comment, "Stay sharp," if you'd keep your glass down too.
"Excuse me," I said, easing my chair back. I should wash up before we dive in. My tone was Sunday after church gentle. My knees were jelly. Down the hallway lined with perfect beach photos, I closed the powder room door and turned the lock. It clicked like a gun in a quiet place. The mirror threw back a face older than this morning. Same eyes, Ellen used to say, saw too much. I dialed 911 and turned the volume to one notch above silent. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Frank Delaney, I whispered. I'm at 1312 Will Rogers Road in Pacific Palisades. My son and daughter-in-law are trying to poison me with potassium cyanide. I saw the bottle. I watched her drop it in my drink. The dispatcher's voice sharpened. Sir, can you repeat the address? I did. My breath fogged the mirror. Outside the door, silverware clinked, and a laugh fluttered like a nervous bird. How many people are in the home? 2. Adam Delaney and his wife, Sloan Hart. She killed her father last year for his inheritance. That's why they can afford this house. I think I'm next. Okay, Mr. Delaney, stay calm. Officers are en route, ETA 20 minutes. Are there any firearms present? Don't know, but the poison is under the kitchen sink behind cleaning supplies. The wine glass on the right is dosed. There's also red juice she tried to make me drink. Please, please hurry. Do not consume any food or drink. Make normal noises, flush the toilet, run the tap. Keep your phone on you. We're coming. I ran the water and flushed, the sounds like a cue line in a bad play. I stood straight and walked back toward a table dressed for a reunion and prepped for a funeral.
Everything okay? Adam called, standing too quickly. Sloane's hand tightened on the knife poised over a beautiful apple pie. Just old man stuff, I joked, sliding back into my chair and keeping my hands folded like a parishioner. This looks incredible. Just a small slice, Sloane urged. Still warm. Let's talk first, I said, stealing minutes. Tell me about your neighbors. It's something up here. We danced through conversations that sounded normal to anyone with ears and looked like a chess match to anyone with eyes. Adam checked his phone. Twice. Sloane's smile didn't move. I watched the front window for a flicker of lights that weren't expensive turn signals. At minute 11, I heard it, the faint stutter of radios and a symphony of engines parking. Doors closed, heavy steps. Fists hit the door with authority. LAPD, a voice called through the heavy wood. We received a call regarding a possible poisoning incident. Adam froze, color draining, then flushing back angry. Sloane's eyes sliced to mine, calculating odds the way gamblers do when the dealer flips a card they didn't expect. I'll get it, Adam stammered, straightening his tie. He turned to me. Det, what did you do? I told the truth, I said, standing slowly. My legs trembled, but my voice didn't. And I didn't take a drink. If your heart's pounding as the cops hit the door, subscribe now. Stories like this aren't just karma stories, they're lifelines. Hit like if you've ever had to buy time with small talk to save your own soul. Comment, I won't drink if you're with me.
The door swung open to badges and blue lights. For the first time all evening, I wasn't the only person in that house who knew what the truth weighed. 3 uniforms filled the foyer with a presence that swallowed the room. Behind them, the polite quiet of the neighborhood fractured, a low murmur of curious neighbors gathering just beyond the property line. Pacific Palisades is good at whispering. Tonight, it had something to say. Mr. Delaney? The lead officer asked, scanning. He was steady, the kind of man you want between you and trouble. That's me, I said, stepping forward. The poison wine and juice are on the table. The cyanide is under the kitchen sink. Back right, behind the bleach. Sir and ma'am, step aside, the officer told Adam and Sloane. Hands where I can see them. This is insane, Adam said, laughter cracking into the air like breaking glass. My father is confused. He's under a lot of stress. He's on medication. Quiet, Sloane hissed without looking at him. Her eyes were all blade, no blink. She knew their script was ruined. She watched the officers like she was already calculating exit strategies. 2 officers peeled off, one to the dining room, one to the kitchen. I heard camera shutters, baggies unrolled, gloves snapped. Evidence handled the way you handle the delicate parts of a bomb. "Found the bottle," the kitchen officer called. "Potassium cyanide. Label intact, serial numbers visible. Photographing now." "In the goblets," the other said, leaning to the light, "we've got suspicious precipitate. The juice glass too. Bagging." The lead officer turned to Adam, voice calm as a highway at midnight. "Sir, place your hands behind your back. You're under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder and conspiracy." Adam stared at me like a boy about to fail a test he thought he'd cheated on. "Dad, please." The cuffs clicked. The sound is smaller than you expect, but heavier. I told him, "You chose money over me." It felt like taking a dull knife to my own chest. You stopped being my son when you chose a shortcut that crossed a grave.
The second officer moved towards Sloane. "Miss Hart, turn around, hands behind your back." She lifted her chin like a queen refusing a crown. "You can't prove anything," she said softly. But her wrists went back without fight, not beyond a reasonable doubt. It was pure LA, calm, coached, toxic. As they read rights, the front walk filled with faces. Wayne stood at the edge of his lawn, shaking, one hand on the hedge like he needed to hold on to the world. I stepped outside with the lead officer to breathe air that wasn't piped through a lie. "I warned you," Wayne murmured. "I couldn't have lived with myself if—" "You saved me," I said, and my voice broke on the last word. "If I ever forget that, remind me." The officers guided Adam and Sloane into separate cars, blue and red light strobes washing the house in a carnival of truth. People recorded. A Tesla idled. Someone whispered, "I knew there was something off about them." "Mr. Delaney," the officer said, jotting something on a clipboard, "we'll need a statement tonight. We'll arrange transport. You can follow us or ride with us." I looked back at the dining room through the great glass and saw the life that almost ended me. Wine wilking like blood, a pie steaming like the last breath of a good man. The house looked smaller. It looked like what it was, a stage set. The show was over. The crew was moving in. I put my hand on the hood of my Buick. It was warm, familiar, honest. I wanted to go home, to some place where the only lies were the small ones married people tell to make everyday life softer. But the night wasn't done with me. There would be statements, there would be pictures, there would be the slow work of turning shock into testimony. Behind me, the officer spoke in a tone that suggested he'd said these words before. "You did the right thing." I wondered if it would ever feel like it. If justice showing up at the door gave you chills, subscribe. This isn't just USA drama. It's a deep, emotional story about what we owe the truth. Hit like for karma and comment "Do the right thing" if you believe courage can save your life.
In court, their lawyers called me confused. 12 strangers watched me carry my own heart to the stand and set it down as evidence. June bled into September in shades of paperwork and sleeplessness. I sublet a small apartment in Santa Monica so I could be 5 miles from the courthouse and a lifetime from the house on the hill. Delaney Freight and Hall, the company I had built with coffee and calluses, was sold to cover legal fees and to close a chapter I couldn't read anymore. A reporter stuck a mic in my face outside a grocery store and asked me what it felt like to have a son try to kill me. I stared at her like she'd asked how to swallow the ocean. The DA's office felt like a war room, maps of moves, names and dates, lab reports on letterhead. They reopened the case of Richard Hart, Sloane's father. Pasadena PD dug into a file that had started as natural causes. They found a friend who had seen him a week before dinner, healthy, red-cheeked, bragging about a new putter. Coroner's notes on pallor. Account statements with timestamps that looked like smiling knives. On the morning of September 15th, Superior Court smelled like wood polish and gravity. The judge peered over glasses. The defense sat like money incarnate, silk ties, shoes that made no sound.
Sloane looked like a woman between photo shoots. Adam's hair was too neat. His eyes were a circle of empty. The prosecutor built the story with patience. Photographs of the bottle, chain of custody, lab analysis, cyanide in 2 glasses, concentrations consistent with an acute lethal dose. Forensic accountant, $5 million into Sloane's account within days of her father's death, and then cars, a house, designer, life rearranged around a sudden fountain. Wayne took the stand. He was shaking but honest. "I didn't want to be the neighbor with binoculars," he said. I couldn't sleep after Mr. Hart died. I watched the comings and goings. I saw Mr. Delaney arrive. I begged him not to go inside." "You begged him?" the defense attorney said, smiling like a wolf. "You're quite the Good Samaritan." Wayne swallowed. "Yeah, maybe. Or just a man trying to do one thing that mattered." Then they called me. The bailiff said my name, and something inside me detached and followed my body to the stand. I raised my right hand and promised to tell the truth. The truth looked back from the defense table in the face of a boy I had taught to change a tire. "Mr. Delaney," the prosecutor began, "tell us what happened the night of June 20th.
I told them about the water glass, the cabinet, the bottle, the humming of a song that didn't belong in that house. I told them about her hand, steady as nature, tipping death into crystal. I told them the thing I didn't want to say. I watched my son wait for me to drink it. The defense tried to stitch another story, a confused older man under stress, high blood pressure medication and a canceled contract, grief clouding judgment. "You sold your business during this period, correct?" they asked, eyebrows bouncing. "So things were hard?" "Hard isn't the same as untrue," I said evenly. "I built a company for 23 years. I can tell the difference between a mistake and a murder." A toxicology expert explained cyanide's speed. A pathologist explained the way it steals oxygen from cells and replaces breath with silence. A forensic tech traced Sloane's internet searches, the kind of late-night curiosity you never want someone to have. The jury left. The jury came back 2 days later. The foreman didn't look at anyone when he read the verdict. Guilty on all counts: attempted murder, conspiracy, and for Sloane, second-degree murder for her father's death. The judge's words were clean. Life without parole for Adam. Life for Sloane. Restitution to Richard Hart's estate. A courtroom is a machine that turns fact into verdict. It doesn't make anything lighter. It just names what already happened. As they led Adam away, he leaned toward me. His voice was lowercase. "I didn't mean—" I shook my head once. "You meant enough." He looked so small in cuffs, it didn't undo anything. If standing on that witness stand with me cost you a tear, subscribe. These aren't just heartbreak stories. They're healing and redemption in long form. Hit like for accountability and comment "Truth Matters" if you believe some lines can't be crossed.
Courtrooms are churches for broken promises. They teach you the difference between a mistake and a plan. The months after the arrest were a collage. Paperwork, depositions, nights I couldn't sleep, mornings I didn't try. Media called it a revenge story, but revenge would have been a quiet toast at a grave. This was protection turned into a consequence. Karma wore a badge that day, but it wasn't vengeance. It was mercy with a spine. I rented a small place in Santa Monica so I wouldn't have to drive I-10 for every hearing. I sold what I could from coal freight and supply to cover the cost to the attorney the district attorney said I didn't need, but I wanted anyway. Control is a funny thing. You give it away when you raise a kid. You try to take it back when you fear losing him altogether. The trial started under a January sun so clear it felt personal. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and nerves. The jury looked like America, wary, apathetic, impatient for the truth. The prosecution didn't rush. They laid out a story built of evidence human enough to cut: a hazardous bottle in a kitchen cabinet, chemical analyses on liquid I didn't drink, financial records showing a windfall after a death that felt sudden and suspicious even to people who prefer not to believe in monsters. Eddie testified about what he saw: a man leaving this house, sick, pale, diminished. He spoke like the teacher he was, calm, organized, apologetic for existing as a witness. "I couldn't do nothing," he said, and I loved him for the double negative that saved my life. They called me. "Mr. Cole," the prosecutor asked gently, "what did you see that night?" I told him everything: how the doorbell rang and no one answered, how hope turned into doubt, how doubt turned into a brown bottle behind bright glasses, how a woman hummed the tune my wife used to sing while stirring something she meant to use like a weapon, how I called for help from a bathroom in my son's home, whispering my survival into a phone that tried to make me brave. The defense tried to make me a confused old man. "Isn't it true," the attorney asked, "that grief can distort reality? That a father who feels abandoned might imagine betrayal where none exists?" I looked at the jury and told the truth I wish I didn't know. A father wants anything but to see his son as a stranger. But love doesn't blind you to poison, it helps you name it. The verdict came on a Friday afternoon. The foreman's voice didn't tremble. "Guilty on all counts."
Sloane didn't look for me. Her face was stone. She received life without parole for what she'd done before and what she tried to do to me. Nate looked for me and found me and said, "Dad, please." He received life for conspiracy and attempted murder. I told him what I had to, what fathers have told sons since Cain and Abel. "I will always be your father, but I cannot walk you into hell because you built a home there." After, I drove to Tucson with the radio off and the desert wide. At Ellen's grave, I set down a small bouquet and a bigger apology. "We almost lost him," I whispered. "We may have anyway, but I'm still here, and I'm trying." I started the Ellen Cole Essex Scholarship at Pima Community College with money the court clawed back from what I won't call blood money, though we both know it. The first recipient wrote me a letter about changing her family's story. I cried into that paper like it could wash me clean. This isn't a tidy ending. It's a true one. Sometimes healing looks like court dates and boundaries. Sometimes redemption sits in a prison letter. Nate wrote me last month. He said he's sorry. He said it took a concrete bed and a metal door to hear his soul. I wrote back that I loved him. I wrote back that he'd have to show it, not say it. And if you're watching this in your kitchen or your car or the gym, hear me. Love your people hard, but when love and truth fight, choose truth. It's the only way back to love that lasts. Don't leave without subscribing. Stories like this remind us what it means to be human, frail, stubborn, hopeful. If you felt betrayed, or if you've been the one who did the betraying, drop a comment. We heal by telling the truth out loud.